So I'm going to turn it over first to Maria Plascencia for her presentation, followed by Maria Garcia, Sonia Lopez, and then Ed last. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me? Okay? No? Maybe I'll run over here. This one. Awesome. Hello, can you hear me now? Hey, welcome to San Diego, Tijuana. My name is MJ Plascencia, and I'm an assistant professor of ethnic studies at the University of San Diego. I was born and raised here in the Tijuana Chula Vista region, so if you have any questions on where you should go eat and things like that, the best tacos, I'm the person you want to talk to. I am a historian of the Tijuana border region, and I primarily focus on the stories of the working class. In other words, the stories of my family. And I collect those stories through oral histories and pláticas following the lead of Chicana feminists. Today, I'll be giving you a brief history overview of the Latinx San Diego-Tijuana border region. And we do have a PowerPoint, but I'm not sure if we can get that up. I'll keep my conversation going, though, in interest of time. I want to lead with saying this is brief. There's no way I can do, this history justice in the short time that we have here, or even in a semester, right, teaching a class in ethnic studies. But as we gather today for this Congreso, I want us to think about the three themes. Thank you so much. Environmental justice, cultural conservation, and social justice. And how in the different bits of history that I give you today, just to contextualize not just the Congreso, but also your visit to San Diego, Tijuana, how these overlap or where you see these. And no matter how familiar you are with the bits of history that I talk about, I want you to think about how this history is reflected in our landscape, in our experiences, in our narratives about place, how this history maybe is contested and maybe what is forgotten, okay? Let's begin with a map of the border region. This is a screen grab from a website called Native Land. It's a really wonderful tool if you want to learn about whose land we're on, but also the languages spoken, the treaties that exist, right? And here is a map of the border region. And I included this because I want us to see how diverse the region is, right? We often think about the borderlands as just Mexican and the United States, but they're in fact also indigenous borderlands, racial borderlands in different ways. I'll keep us moving. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the different periods that this area goes through, right? So New Spain, 1521 to 1821. And again, interest of time, I won't necessarily go through the details here. 1821, let me take a step back. As you navigate San Diego, I want you to think about how this colonial history is represented, right? And maybe how we can offer some resistance to that. I mean, just think of our baseball team, right? That's something my students and I talk about every semester when we learn about the colonial history of San Diego. 1821, Mexico gains independence from Spain. So the region that we find ourselves in went from being Spanish territory to then Mexican territory, and a little bit over 20 years in between, 1821 to 1846, we get the Mexican-American War, okay? In 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is signed, and so half of that land that is currently the Republic of Mexico in 1846 becomes part of the United States, okay, and becomes part of the U.S. Southwest. Why am I taking you this far back? Because for Chicanos and Chicanas in the Chicane community, it's really important to understand 1848 as a moment where la frontera, yo no crucé la frontera me cruzó, right? I didn't cross the border, but the border crossed me. And it's also important to know this history, to know that some Mexicanos and Mexican Americans and Chicanas have been here since before this was the United States, right? And so this is important for us to contextualize this region. Also, San Diego, or what we now know as San Diego, went through three different, political powers in about 100 years, right? Spain, Mexico, and then the United States. Let's flash forward. Not a lot of exciting things happened in the late 19th century. I think they do, but we'll skip that for now. And now I'll talk about the two waves of Mexican migration that really lead to the growth of Tijuana and San Diego. The first one happens in 1910 to 1930 because of the Mexican Revolution, which happens 1910 to 1920, and the Cristero War, which happens 1926 to 1929. During this time, I want us to think about Tijuana and San Diego's growth happening very parallel to each other. So if we get population growth in San Diego, it's likely happening in Tijuana as well. And so the population grows in both sides of the border, and a lot of Mexican migrants coming at this time move into the Logan Heights area or the Lemon Grove area. And in fact, in Lemon Grove, at the Lemon Grove Grammar School in 1928, 1929, we get one of the earliest cases of school desegregation. In the interest of time, I won't really get into that, but definitely Google it if this is something you're interested in. The second wave of Mexican migration that leads to growth in Tijuana, San Diego is Bracero program, which happens 1942 to 1964. What else is happening in 1942 in the United States and in the world? World War II, exactly. So in an effort to alleviate some of the labor shortage that is experienced in the United States and Mexico both agree to this binational labor agreement, sending Mexicanos, but also indigenous peoples from Mexico or living in Mexico to the United States to work in the fields. Between 1940 and 1950, Tijuana's population increased by 300%. And about 2/3 of people living in Baja California were actually from out of the state, meaning that they were migrants from other parts of Mexico and other parts of the world. So neighborhoods in Tijuana really grow during this time. Some of you might be familiar with some of these. Colonia Libertad, La Colonia Cacho, La Colonia Independencia. And here I have a picture of my family because this is my family's migration story. My abuelito, or my grandpa, and my tío Manuel actually come here as braceros, and they work in largely California, and eventually they moved my family in the 1950s to Tijuana, and eventually some of my family members trickle over to San Diego and even LA. So again, if growth is happening in Tijuana, it is also happening in San Diego. Now I want to zone into Logan Heights and Barrio Logan, which is where the Chicano Park is and the Chicano Park Museum is. So I really do hope all of you get a chance to go, if you haven't yet, to the park and to the museum. I will briefly tell you or frame environmental racism in Logan Heights, which is really important for understanding the area today, okay? In the 1910s, we get the Navy base, and as the wars continue, shipyards and shipbuilding becomes a major industry in the Logan Heights area. Different zoning laws in the 1950s lead to industry being next to residential zones, okay? So that means houses or people can live next to car shops and things like that. In the 1960s, which is the one I'll focus on, we get the construction of the 5 freeway and the Coronado Bridge. In 1965, Interstate 5 is completed, and in 1969, the Coronado Bridge is completed, which I'm sure all of you maybe already drove on it or, drove through it or saw it. The Blue Bridge, that's right out here. This is my favorite mural in San Diego. Definitely check it out. It's on Harborside Drive. I think it's a wonderful cultural preservation of some of the history of this community. So the impact of the 5 freeway and the Coronado Bridge was really detrimental to the Logan Heights community. It severed the community, right? It cut across the community, and it led to the displacement of about 5,000 families, okay? Because of the damage that the freeway and the bridge had on the community was promised a park by the city of San Diego. There was a green space that was available for use, and residents were promised that piece of land. Instead, a student from City College, and I know there's people here who were there that day, so if I have certain names wrong, you can correct me, please. Instead, in 1970, a student from City College witnessed construction crews ready to build a highway patrol station, okay? And so word spread around the community, and there was a takeover of that land, a takeover and a fight for the park. One of my favorite films is about Chunky. I think Paul Espinosa, the filmmaker, is here or will be here for this Congreso. There's a good section about the park and Chunky's song, and Chunky has a song called Chicano Park. Definitely recommend it. Eventually, the community won, and in April 1970, which also happens to be the first Earth Day, we get Chicano Park, right? And yes, definitely. And I just want to state that even though we won that fight, right, the fight continues in many different ways. So whether you attend the museum or support the park in different ways, that support is still very much important to maintaining our community and maintaining the park. Just a few things about Logan Heights and about the park and how this history still shapes our reality today. Logan Heights has one of the highest rates of childhood asthma in the country, and that is because of the zoning, because of the shipyards, because of the freeway, okay? So all of that still impacts people there today. And Chicano Park is the only green space in that zip code, okay? So it's very much a fight for environmental justice and for cultural preservation. The murals tell our stories, right, in so many different ways. I just want to end, I know I'm running out of time, with a list of dates that harden the border and make the border more difficult to cross, more violent to cross. And I just want to highlight 1994 Operation Gatekeeper, which focuses on deterrence, fences, and surveillance. And it's born out of here in San Diego. And so if you've ever driven across the line in Tijuana, you might have seen a lot of crosses, right, to honor the people whose lives were lost trying to cross the border. And there's a mural here from Chicano Park that I think speaks to that as well. That still shapes our reality today. A lot of people have tried to cross through the more dangerous parts of the border to avoid those fences or avoid that surveillance and end up losing their lives. And I just want to end with this Playas de Tijuana mural project because I want you to see the Tijuana side of the border, right? This is the fence that leads into the playa, into the ocean. This is a mural, it's no longer up, but you can check it out digitally by Lisbeth de la Cruz Santana, where in collaboration with people who were deported, childhood arrivals, people who arrived in the United States as kids were deported back to Mexico, they painted their own image on the mural and told their own stories. And so I think that this is a wonderful project that really showcases the more contemporary San Diego Tijuana history, but also cultural conservation, the environment, right, and social justice. So thank you all. Let me know if you have any questions.
My name is Garcia, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about myself. Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm not going to talk about a lot because I want you to see the presentation. If it's okay, I have an injury and it's hard for me to stand for a bit. So I'm going to sit, but I can see it right here. And what you're looking at. No, I'm going to sit back here. Let's see. This is the book cover to my book. It's We Made San Diego. And as you can see, what I wanted to show is that we're all over. People say, oh, Latinos South Bay, oh, Latinos Barrio Logan. But on purpose, I did do Barrio Logan, and I did Lemon Grove, a couple of other places, but I'm going to start my presentation with Eden Gardens. I also picked the title. Okay, what's going on? What am I doing wrong? And I always blame myself. I never, I have a couple of quotes here. Here's one from Cesar. Preservation of one's own culture does not require contempt or disrespect for others. I think that's very important because people often think, oh, you don't want to be part of our history, you want your own. It's not that we want our own. We want to see ourselves in history books, which we don't see ourselves. And then this is one of, okay, you guys, I need help. This is one of my favorite quotes. If the lion does not tell its own story, the hunter will. And I think that's really self-explanatory. It's an African quote, and I've often used it. This is La Colonia de Eden Gardens. And for those of you who've never been there, it's, if you, instead of turning left to the racetrack, you turn right, go up to the first light, turn right again, and you're in a Mexican community, which was once a real Mexican community. But thank you. By that I mean they were living there. It's becoming very gentrified. Now what you have is apartments. Next one. This is Tony Gonzalez. Tony is the original owner of El Jacal. He came to work the citrus and the avocado fields in Solana Beach before Interstate 5. So if you can imagine all the citrus trees going all the way back, and he came on the bus and was asked to sit on the back of the bus. And he ended up owning El Jacal and being the bartender. Next. This is a segregated school in Solana Beach, and like everything else, it was, hidden under the, well, you need to learn English. When you learn English, we'll send you to another school. However, there was never the other school. Next. This is Cipriana Gonzalez, and I'm going to tell you, I admire this lady so much. I never met her, but she was part of La Colonia, and the diocese wanted to close the church. It was a church where they had the Kermés, they had the Mass in Spanish. It was part of the community. Let there be a wedding, and they'd all go down Valle honking and all this. It was a real community. Well, the diocese decided that they wanted the Catholics there to go down to Solana Beach, to the church, of course, to get the money and all this. And she started a petition along with other people there, and the petition was not to close the church. Oh, the diocese looked at that and threw it away. But she did not stop, and this is what I admire about her. She sent it to the Vatican. And I would never have thought of that. I don't know how many of you would have thought of it. She sent it to the Vatican, and the Vatican made it a mission, and you don't close missions. So that church is still there, and it's still a real center of the community, isn't she? I think she's one of the people that raised a lot of funds for that church was Desi Arnaz. Desi and Lucy first were there, and then Desi with his second wife was there, and he did, the Sunday fundraisers for the church and the singing and performing. Next. This is the mission, St. Leo's. It's still there. Sometimes it's locked during the day, but you can find somebody to unlock it for you, because I've done that several times. Okay. This is the first wedding that took place at St. Leo's. That's Lisa Montes's parents, Luis and Carmen. And they were the first wedding. And weddings were a big deal in that little community. Whether you were invited or not, the big deal was coming out of your house and watching the cars go by from the wedding and waving it. Un escándalo, basically. But it was just really welcomed. Okay. They have a monument to the various World War heroes. They start with World War II and go to Korea, Vietnam, and it's really nice because you see all these Latino names, and sometimes, we've been forgotten. This is San Diego Trust and Savings Bank. Now downtown, it's a Marriott, and in that Marriott, in the basement, was this group of spies. They didn't call them spies. They called them civil service workers. These women, because think of San Diego during World War II, and it's very hard because most of us were kids, not even born during World War II. It was really believed that the Japanese were going to invade through Tijuana. They were going to come that way into San Diego. And of course, San Diego being a Navy town, it was a big deal. They hired a group of Mexicanas, and they had one group here and one group in Calexico, and they monitored phone calls between Mexico and here. I think the most exciting thing they found was that John Wayne was having an affair with somebody, but other than that, but at least it was there if needed. Next. I'm one of these people, if you tell me something happened there, I go. Like in the canyons over by where USD is now, I went looking for just any frame that was left. Found nothing, but I really worked at it. Well, I show up at the Marriott and said, hello, I'm so-and-so, and I'd like to have a tour. And I thought they would invite me, oh, you come back in a week. They said, well, you want it right now? And that kind of threw me off because I wasn't completely ready for but they still have the old telephone booths. Next. they have this is where the boxes were. I mean, it was interesting. And of course, Snoopy and me had to go see if there was just one thing from there. Didn't find a thing, but I really wanted to. Next. These are the neighborhood house singers. The Marston family started the neighborhood house in 1914. In those days, rich girls came home, and if you weren't married, you were expected to take on some social issue. The Marston, those of you who grew up in San Diego, the Marstons had a department store. Marstons meant money. There was no other way to explain it. And they were also very smart. If they asked you to donate musical instruments, a month later, there would be a performance on the radio with the kids using the musical instruments. They performed various places. I don't know if you can see, but the little tiny lady in the front row, that's Lupita. And if you grew up in the community, you knew who Lupita was, yeah. And Lupita was a little dwarf, and the boys treated her unmercifully, making fun of her. But she had something that they didn't have. She had the keys to all the games and all the sports equipment. You tee her off, you're not going to get a baseball. So she had her ways. But as an older lady, she was kind of angry all the time. I'm putting it mildly. But I think it was just too many years of being teased. Next. This is the cooking class at the neighborhood house. They had cooking, they had sewing, they had ESL classes. But what this picture fascinates me with is, look how dressed up those girls are to go to cooking class. The girls, if they were going to class, and the class was from 9 to 10, they better be home shortly after 10. The boys could go first thing in the morning and not come home till it was dark, and that was no big deal. Next. When I was doing research, I went through the pictures from the Library of Congress. And this was one of the pictures that was there, and it said, typical Mexican family in Logan Heights, 8 people lived in a room. Now, what they failed to mention was some of those houses were the cannery houses, and some of those houses were the railroad houses. And they didn't have indoor plumbing, but it was like, this is how Mexicans like to live, you know. Okay, next. Rudy Martinez is the first Mexican-American killed in World War II, any place in this country. He was from San Diego, went to San Diego High. Next. He lived, you can see, he went to, and this is from Memorial. And by the way, San Diego High has the best collection of materials. They're actually cataloged and everything. You go to this one at the one at the city, and you're going through boxes to find one piece of paper. He was writing his mother. Go back, please. No. He was writing his mother on December 7th, asking her for a picture when the ship went down. Okay, and we're hoping that there was not the VFW, but the other one, which I can't remember the name right now, was named in his honor, and it was right behind the neighborhood house. Then VFW came in, and it was kind of wiped out. Next. This is the neighborhood house coach, and basically this is the team from 1922. When you read, and I only have about 5 minutes, when you read about them, you read things like, we're hiring these coaches because these boys don't know about the rules and regulations and that. These kids were playing like any other kid, any other color, on the street and making their own rules. It wasn't that unusual. Okay. This is Ney Hernandez. Ney is the first Padre killed in World War II. And he was killed, the stadium, whichever side it's on, has a tribute to him. Next. This is Valentina, Tina Hernandez. She's his sister. And I found I'm working on a baseball book as well. I found something very interesting. If you're near the border, the mother's, mija, no vas a jugar. What are the men going to say if you know how to play baseball and you don't know how to make tortillas? And Tina was about this high, and she stretched, and she said, and I learned how to do both. She was a sassy little lady when I interviewed her. And notice how the outfit is. I mean, that's risque in those days. Past risque, I think. Okay, next. This is Tina holding her brother's flag. Okay, next. This is Chicano Park, and you've already seen this slide, but what I can tell you, people 30 years old say they were there when the park was made. Well, I don't know how they were, because park's a little bit older than 30. But the lady holding the purse with the white sweater is me. Okay, so I can prove I was there. Okay, next. This is a tire company that, and by the way, the building is still there. See the train? You could go there and buy tires for as little as 50 cents. And you know that was a popular place in the barrio. And I went, again, walking through there and asking, moving boards around. And I sound like I'm really brave. I'm not. I'm just very nosy. And I tried to find something that showed fell back. But I did talk to several of the community members and said, oh, no. When we needed a tire, we'd go there. Next. See, this was the first tire west of Chicago. And supposedly they first punctured proof tire. I don't know how true that is. Go ahead. This is Manuel Tortilla Ojeda with his grandson. Tortilla had a group called Tortilla's Army. And during World War II, they decided they were going to defend the barrio. And so they marched up and down the streets and did all these things, maneuvers. Then they decided, well, if the Japanese were going to invade, they weren't going to invade their school. So they dug a trench around an old school, which is now Perkins School, to save it. And I can't find it, and the people from the History Center have looked. There was an article that came out in Look or Life magazine about how this group was going to defend San Diego, and people started sending them canteens and different things. Okay, I have 3 minutes left. Oh, go back to this is a national city, and they had the matadoras, where you meet the meat packing, and you have different stories. The people working there said, oh, they needed them, we wanted it, it was a job. Other people said, if you heard the noise from there or the smell, you would not support it. I think it's like the junkyards were, and like everything, 50 here and 50 there. Okay, you can see. If somebody's doing a paper, I really recommend you look into the slaughterhouses, because the articles were fascinating. You'd have a whole series on why you should have them, and then you'd have another one why you shouldn't have them. And I don't know who paid who to make it possible. Okay, next. This is a railroad, and this is under the bridge on Harbor Drive. And to go down there, you have to have an act of God, or your council person asking for permission. They talked about how, oh no, it's very dangerous. I went down there, and under the bridge, there's 1 million homeless people, and yet they didn't want to let me go down there. And again, I was looking for the railroad, because Latinos and the railroad go hand in hand. Next, and I want you to see this slide. This is what we had. Almost 1,900 Mexicans working by 1927. These are the stats. In 1885, we only had 32 Mexicanos in the state of California working on the railroad. But it became in fact, my own father worked from San Antonio here to Arizona on the railroad. Okay. The Barrio Logan sign, don't pass that sign and not stop and read it. That's all I want to tell you. There's so much. Armando did a beautiful job of putting all this information on what the shells mean, what everything means. But if you just drive by and ignore learning about it, you've missed out. I think that's where I stop. Does anybody have, thank you. Does anybody have a quick question I can answer? Thank you.
Am I next, Josie? Oh, I don't know how to do it.
Somebody else?
I don't know if I. Don't. I'll tell you on the picture. Hello? Yeah. Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you, Josie, for inviting me. I'm a little bit surprised because I guess I wasn't expecting such a big audience, which is great. Which is great. Which is great. Anyway, I do have some slides, but I don't really want to get into them until I tell you a little bit about myself so you can understand why I wrote this book. It's called Chicana Tributes, okay? It's about activist women in the Chicano movement. So I was born in Magdalena, Sonora, and my family came in the 50s to Calexico, California. I was raised in Imperial County, but my family does go back to the US, which I didn't know way before that. My grandfather was born and raised in San Bernardino. And as a matter of fact, his family are considered founders of San Bernardino. And I didn't know that when I was growing up. My father was one of the people that was deported in the 1930s because his family had come from Sonora during the revolution, and they ended up working in the mines in Arizona. So I had all this history that when you're growing up and your family is poor and you don't really get a lot of attention at the schools, you're kind of like really nowhere. You're just growing up, leading a normal life as a kid. Anyway, to make the long story short, I ended up coming to San Diego State in 1968. And it so happened that in San Diego, there was a lot of politica going on, right? I went into school. I mean, the black movement was here in San Diego, pretty heavy. The Brown Berets were here. The anti-war movement was everywhere. And so if you can imagine, I was such a wallflower that if you talked to me, I would turn red, okay? So I thought I was gonna die when I started San Diego State and I had a speech class. Anyway, my journey was basically, I came here with people from all over the nation to San Diego State, especially from California, because at that time, President Johnson, remember the anti-war, the whole thing with trying to, anti-poverty programs and so forth. And that's when the colleges got money for EOP programs to bring in minority people. And so I'm a product with so many from people from all over the state of California. Anyway, this wallflower turned into an activist. And through the Chicano movement, you know, that's when I met people like Yolanda Lopez, who later on became heavy-duty artist. I guess I used to hang out with her. So this book is basically about all those women that most of them personally met or worked with. So as time went by and history books were being written about the Chicano movement, the leaders in the movement, I didn't see the women. Starting in San Diego, I'm sorry guys, but in San Diego, women were also not being included in the narratives. So it was very important to me to identify what I think were great figures and great women that were part of the history, are part of the history of San Diego. For instance, starting with Josie Talamantes. You know, Josie and I, you know, we did meet. We crossed our path. She ended up going up north. I ended up going up north and back. As a young person, I came to San Diego State to become a teacher. Why? Because I had experienced such a horrible experience in school, right? We were ashamed to speak Spanish. We were ashamed to who we were. And that's what I think motivated me. And of course, when I came to San Diego State, I got on probation my first semester, and I didn't think I was going to make it through. So that's why it was so important to me to become involved, starting with student groups, Mecha, to create programs to keep the raza that was coming in. I think in some of the slideshows, you're going to see, for instance, a cocina that we started. We used to come to Barrio Logan and buy tamales and beans, and we used to sell them at San Diego State. I don't know, has anybody been switching them? No? So you can start switching them. So this is the book. It is available at Amazon. I think it's too expensive, but you could maybe get it cheap. We try to work something out with a publisher, but I don't know where it's at. The book was put together by myself and a woman named Rita Sanchez. Rita Sanchez ended up coming to San Diego to take my job at San Diego State after people would say I got fired, but that's neither here or there. I mean, it's all about politics, right? Yeah, it's all about politics. Anyway, I was the first Chicana to teach the Chicana class at San Diego State. And anyway, as politics goes, so kind of give you a little bit, maybe some history here about why I ended up leaving San Diego State. So throughout, the state of California in the 1972, 74, we were going through what I consider an ideological change in the Chicano movement. And so here at Mecha, at San Diego State, we had an organization called Centro de Estudios Chicanos that was part of Mecha. And so part of that organization, we built different things in the community. Barrio Station, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Barrio Station. All these organizations, and we had a lot of power at San Diego State in the community. And as politics go, movements go through changes. And so the people that I was working at San Diego State, we were considered, we became too much of a left. In other words, because we started to move away from what we considered too nationalistic. And so things did not go well with people in the community as well as San Diego State. So many of us in protest ended up leaving the university. And that's how Rita Sanchez came to San Diego State. Anyway, she ended up taking my job after I left. I ended up going back to Imperial County, where I ended up as a high school counselor at the high school that I graduated from. Because in San Diego, I could not find a job, okay? Anyway, back in Calexico, where I grew up, I got into politics, of course, and I ran candidates. Anyway, ever since then, I continue to support candidates, try to be somewhat of an activist, but my passion has always been to document. So I have a lot of pictures. One of my first endeavors at teaching at San Diego State was collecting essays and stories to print, but I ended up leaving, but I still continue to do the work. I ended up being a counselor most of my life, in politics, running candidates, Chicanas, but continue to, like I said, document. Part of the documentation for me was to give light to so many women like Josie, Rachel Ortiz, who has worked over 50 years to make it possible to have organizations like Barrio Station to help our youth that because of economics, because of education, the parents or society cannot help them. So all these women that are in the book are women that to me have made a difference economically, culturally, historical. Right now, I'm also working on an essay that a friend of mine, Adelaida del Castillo, asked me to do about 4 years ago. Adelaida del Castillo, for those of you that do not know her, she retired as a teacher from Chicano Studies, and has always published a lot of work on Chicanas. And to my surprise, I found myself in some of her writings. So you have to realize that a lot of us Chicanas that have been active, we knew each other briefly. Sometimes we worked together, whether in CHE, Chicano Counselor for Higher Education, that was the organization that published El Plan de Santa Bárbara, okay? And so throughout the years, many of us have tried to keep connected, keep documenting, and keep working together. Right now, she's in the process of putting a Chicano encyclopedia together. How's that? Yeah. So it's been on the works. So what happened, it started in 2020, but with the, am I going too long? Do I need to? Okay. Anyway, that project was cut short because of the pandemic, but hopefully it's going to be out. Anyway, let's see. This is at the top on your right-hand side is Irene Mena, who was very instrumental in the Brown Berets in San Diego. You want to go to the next, see if we can go through the... And in the middle is Arturo Serrano, the founder of the Brown Berets here in San Diego, and I think Carmichael is next to him. He's meeting with some of the Black Panthers, some of the Black leadership here in San Diego. So you, go ahead. Yeah, and this is Norma Chavez. She is a product of Chicano Studies, and she is the director of the ACLU for San Diego Imperial Counties. And I am so proud of her because she is also in the book. What we try to do was go from women that were active in the 60s, 70s, and to the present. So I thank you for your time, and I hope I did not talk too long and was too boring. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Excellent, great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Edward Lopez. I am pinch hitting for Maria Velasquez, our president and founder of the Latino Legacy Foundation. And I believe Maria submitted a series of slides. I don't know if we can bring those on up. Perhaps you can just go through for me. Do you mind doing it? Excellent. Thank you very much. And I can be very brief to hopefully save some time for Q&A. Let me first provide a realistic expectation for you all. How can I follow these three outstanding Latinas? I can't, so I won't even try to. But again, I am pinch hitting and batting cleanup apparently. Maria, your slides got me so energetic with baseball. Well, because our Padres also won this morning and are catching up with the Dodgers in LA. But the San Diego Latino Legacy is a nonprofit. We have a multimedia online book project in the works right now. It's already been published, and it's available on our website free, and we hopefully want to make it available for all community, for educators, for schools, for students. We focus and emphasize first-person storytelling. So with many already of the stories and the events and the eras that you heard from Dr. Plascencia or Maria, they also are captured already in our chapters that have been published, or our chapters basically are eras. If we can go on to the next slide, perhaps. Again, we believe in the power of storytelling, first-person storytelling with multimedia channels. And like everybody here, I would presume what we know, what we think, what we really want is that we not only want to build knowledge for those within our community, but for those without our community. We want to foster understanding, and more now than ever, we believe that's a vehicle and a pathway that will help bring us together. Please. So again, our multimedia online book project, San Diego Latino Legacy, focuses on timeline, milestones, and stories that again start to peer into, reveal, talk about, present the different eras that covers specifically San Diego history. We start, as has been referenced already, with the Treaty of Guadalupe. And if I recall, we actually have an interview with descendants of some of those early Californial families in our first chapter. We move on through digital features, just like video interviews, with those who either made history, are making history, or are even family members and descendants. So we also have a era and chapter and content that focuses on the Lemon Grove incident, from storytelling of the some of the leaders of the community and the parents through the Avada Gonzalez family. We also then move through, and these first 5 eras or chapters have already been available, and I'll give you our website at the very end, but then we move through the World War II era. And we have, again, family members who talk about what their fathers, their grandfathers, their tíos did in terms of service, but as well as was highlighted by Maria, the Latinas. My mother, a proud Memorial and San Diego High grad, her mother, all of her comadres, they were in the canneries. There, they actually were the leaders in labor and in the canneries there. And so we feature those stories, again, through first-person storytelling, through multimedia, and it's all available free for anybody who would like to see it. And ultimately, I'll get to this in the end too, one of our goals is simply to continue to add to the content, build that archive, and have a program, perhaps like this organization already does, but like others, where we can solicit individuals to record their own family history, their community history, and we want to build that archives. It is so important not only for our own community members to understand and to remember, but for those outside of our community to understand in many, many respects, what we're learning is that other communities face the same challenges, the same issues. Together, though, we think we stand a better chance of overcoming for all. If we can move to the next slide. So again, we chronicle the historic roots, starting with the the early Californial history through the 1848 Treaty of Guadalupe, moving through significant eras and movements and current events, up to current events, excuse me. We, of course, cover the local Chicano civil rights movement. Then we follow that up with the Chicano cultural Renaissance era and talk about what you saw with some of the pictures, the Chicano murals, the Lowrider Culture Club. I believe Dr. Pulido has contributed to that specific chapter. Thank you very much. Talk about Chunky Sanchez and his contributions and his place in history as well. We have already finished off, just haven't put it up as part of the multimedia online book project, the eras that cover sort of the late 80s up until the turn of the century, as well as then moving beyond into more current times and dealing up with sort of the COVID and pandemic era. Our project sort of harkens back to our president's 1994 100 Portraits project. Maria Velasquez was one of the early members of the local TV media, one of the few, if only Latinas, who was on local TV, and she just simply got tired of hearing all the bashing that was going on in the early 90s in California. If you are not familiar, not unlike what we see today, there were those who were seeking to make political gains and political headways by bashing the Latino community, and she, instead of all that negative, wanted to showcase positive portrayals, positive images. So she had a 100 Portraits project, 100 portraits of local Chicano Latino leaders. It was well received, and over the years, she really wanted to follow that up. And right around the COVID pandemic area, we launched our nonprofit foundation to pick up there. We have a timeline, major national, regional, and local events, mirrors much of what Dr. Plascencia also covered as well. Next slide, please. Most important, at least from us, and we believe this is something to be learned from for other organizations, for other projects, is the importance of collaboration to build upon the excellent and fine work from Maria. By the way, if you didn't know, Maria was a long time one of the first principals in San Diego Unified, and she led various schools. I just remember Audubon, which was heavily Latino and more than anything else showed when you got outstanding leaders, outstanding educators, you work with the community parents, our kids learn. There's no problem. They learn. You just have to concentrate and focus and bring the resources. Maria showcased that that was possible. We want to make sure that unforgotten, untold stories are retained and brought forth. And like I said, even if we can start to build an archive, it doesn't have to be from the so-called experts or others. We all have made and contributed to making history in our own personal ways, but there are so many stories that are available to be told. We want to capture that, as I believe you're already seeing with, or in terms of the telling events and stories and places like you see with the Las Abuelas project that I just heard about. Next slide, please. So our website right here is the Latino Legacy Foundation. It's an ongoing project. Again, we are publishing this multimedia online book project. We have already covered many of the eras up through, as I mentioned, the COVID era. We want to go beyond that, and we'll be posting future chapters that also cover, the media. Proudly We Serve, talking about Latinos who have served beyond the World War II and Vietnam War and also contribute, as well as the emergence and the growth and the leadership, quite frankly, of many, many from the community who have stepped up and played a leadership role in local politics. And here in San Diego, actually, we have an outstanding track record of, quite honestly, it's all Latina. From mayors to Oceanside to Chula Vista to the first county supervisor that's Latina in San Diego. It's all Latinas. So again, we want to make this available free for all, make it available for students in the classrooms. We also want to make it available and are emphasizing that those outside the Latino community, we hope they will take an interest and learn from it. You know, it was just fascinating to hear so many of the stories, and many of us probably share common characteristics or common elements to what we heard from our other panelists. Let me tell you, Maria, my mom, again, a proud Memorial and San Diego High grad, I learned baseball from her. And in the summertime, she would rush on out, pitch the ball to me, run in and make tortillas, and come back out and throw the ball again. All the men in the neighborhood knew was spring training in the Lopez household when my mom was out there. But we want others to learn that there have been so many people, so many who have contributed to a legacy that extends beyond the Latino legacy in San Diego. It really contributes to who we all are, at least here in our small region. And if we want to get past this and grow and become better, then it's going to take all of us. I will thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity to present on the Latino Legacy Foundation.
Let's give them another round of applause. Does anybody have any questions? We have about 3 to 4 minutes. I don't know. Yeah. No questions? Okay. Well, oh, Jason has a question. We have a question.
Is this any better? I think I heard he was asking why first-person storytelling. Is there a particular, do you believe, value? What does it bring? Well, bottom line for us, no, not quite. Well, for example, with the so he's asking, what does it encompass? What does it kind of mean beyond just saying first-person storytelling? So, for example, with the Lemon Grove incident, we interviewed descendants, of the Gonzalez family that were local leaders among the parents, and they talked about what they remembered their parents were talking about, what they were trying to organize and do, and the role they had to get to sort of coordinate among all the parents, stuff that you may not get in a traditional history retelling of that event. We had a long-time figure in the local community, Sister Margaret Castro, passed away in the last year or two?
2 years.
2 years or so, and we were able to get her on a video interview, and she talked about the residential segregation and how her family did not have the opportunity to purchase housing in all others of San Diego, and as a result were redlined into particular neighborhoods. So we really want to get beyond those who may have already told the story, been interviewed, profiled in a book, and allow those who just haven't had a chance to tell their story and give them the opportunity to capture it, to preserve it, and we certainly want to invite others to do the same.
You know, my reasons were different. We're not in the books. What I said, what I was quoted the African proverb, if we don't tell our story, the lion will. This is our version. This is what we saw. This is what we lived. And I personally found individuals, talking to individuals, they may not always agree with somebody else, but they have the stories inside them, and we should tell them.